Today I'm welcoming Garett Groves to the podcast as part of the 2017 GRL Blog Tour. Garett is an MM romance author based in Southwest Florida. There he enjoys spending time with his husband and their 2 cats. Their hobbies include being disgustingly codependent, sleeping, eating junk food, and drinking copious amounts of red wine. Welcome, Garett.
Hey there, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be on today.
Yeah, happy to have you here. I suppose if we'd scheduled our interview later in the night, you could have brought red wine to the table, but
Yeah, maybe the cats too.
this early in the morning might be a little too much for that.
Yeah, I'm not a day drinker yet. I'm getting there. I haven't worked up my way up.
So you've got a new book coming out. It drops on July 31st, which is the day this podcast comes out. Tell us a little bit about Clickbait.
Yeah, so Clickbait is the first book in my new series, Off the Record. If you've ever seen the HBO show The Newsroom, it's very heavily based on that show. I studied journalism in college, so journalism is kind of my passion. And I've always had this idea since I decided I wanted to write romance that I wanted to do something political or kind of journalism focused. So the idea sprang from that. It's going to be a 3-book series. I don't want to give too many details on the other books yet, just because I don't have them all ironed out. But yeah, the first book is coming out July 31st. It's a passion project of mine. I've been wanting to write this since I decided to start writing romance back in January or so. So it's definitely something I've had on my wish list. I don't know how detailed you want to get on the actual details of the book here. But it is a May-December story. I'm kind of known for that. That's what I do. It's with a YouTube star, who's not really YouTube, because I couldn't do that without getting in trouble. And an older kind of establishment media type guy who is a cable news anchor. They hate each other. It is an enemies to lovers story. So things start off pretty antagonistic between the two of them. And then eventually they're assigned to work on a project together, and things kind of devolve from there. So there's media intrigue involved and leaked photos. It's a lot of fun. It's the longest book I've ever written, but it's like my favorite by far. So if you're into a 100,000 word romance novel with May-December themes and enemies to lovers, this is your jam.
And journalism.
Yes, exactly.
I'm also a journalist by education, so... And I like a good May-December, so yeah, I think I'll have to be picking that up. Now, you mentioned May-December was kind of your thing. How did you decide to want to go down that path?
Well, so I actually am in a May-December relationship myself. My husband's 20 years older than me, so it's kind of personal for me. And I knew when I started writing romance that I wanted to do something that I actually had an interest in, because I couldn't put my heart into writing something that I didn't really know and that I would have to do a ton of research on. Like, I'm trained as a journalist, but I hate doing research. I really hate it. So I was like, you know what, I'd rather do something that I know and can kind of speak to from my own personal experience, because I think it'll make a better story. And I only intended to do 1 book off at the start that way, and people loved it and responded really well to it. So I said, well, I mean, if they like it, I'll just give them more of it, because it's not really hard for me to write. Like, all of our friends are May-December couples, so there's plenty of inspiration for me to draw from. And like, sorry guys, you're in my books.
Do they know that they're in your book?
Some of them do, some of them don't. I mean, it's never anything overt, but I do draw certain personality elements and some kind of like conflicts that I've seen in relationships with my friends, like things that they've fought about in the past, but fabricate it, so it's not totally obvious.
Any resemblance to those living or dead is purely coincidental.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe I should put a disclaimer at the start of the book.
You mentioned you'd been publishing just since January, or writing just since January. What made you take the leap?
Yeah, so I was writing under a different name. I was doing some erotica stuff just to kind of explore and learn the market and how self-publishing itself actually works. I started that in, I think, like May of last year. And in October of last year was really when I decided to take the plunge, because I was like, oh, I kind of enjoy this, but I'm not really down with writing these 5,000 word stories every week and then have them not make anything. If I'm going to be a writer, I want to actually be paid for my work. So I, believe it or not, had not even read a romance novel before I decided to write them. So I went on a binge in October. I mean, I got a Kindle Unlimited subscription, and I just read everything that I could possibly read to try and get a feel for the genre and what people like, what they don't like, and what I could write, what I would enjoy writing. And I found a book which actually really pushed me over the edge. It was the book The Weight of It All by N.R. Walker. I'm sure that'll be familiar to a lot of the listeners. It's definitely one of my favorite books I've ever read. It is so funny and it's so encouraging, and it's not a traditional book, but it really helped me mold my style and the kind of humorous, not too serious tones and plots that I take in my books. So it was at that point after I finished reading that I was like, okay, I can do this. There's a market for this. This is what I really want to do. So I started writing. I think I wrote maybe 2 drafts that I wasn't really happy with of a different story idea and threw them out. And then in February, by that time I had rolled around, I started working on my first book, which was Salt and Pepper. And I put it out there in March, and it did phenomenally well. And ever since then, I've just been on a roller coaster ride of a journey. I was still working full time when I wrote that first book. I went full time writing in May. I quit my job in technical support, and I've been doing this full time since then and loving it. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Why the plunge into self-publishing rather than connecting with one of the publishers in the genre?
I'm a bit of a control freak. I wanted to be able to do everything myself, mostly because I want to learn about it all myself. I've had a natural thirst for knowledge, especially about like marketing and PR and things like that. Actually, one of my big regrets is that I didn't study that in school and did reporting instead, because my reporting degree has been pretty worthless. But so yeah, I just wanted control. I wanted to be able to say like, no, I want it to look this way. I want it to sound this way. I wanted to be able to market it the way that I wanted to market it, and kind of learn from the mistakes along the way.
And what have you discovered in these first 7 months of being self-published?
It really is a full-time job. I mean, it never stops. Like, I've had conversations just recently with my husband, like, hey, I knew when you were going into this that it was going to be a lot of time spent, but I wasn't imagining 14, 16-hour days just going at it. But for me, it's not really even work. It doesn't feel like work. This is something that I love. It's something I wanted to do since I was old enough to write. So for me, it's like I just get lost in it, and I totally lose track of time, and general basic hygiene and well-being habits sometimes. So that's one thing I've had to learn, and I'm still working on that to try and devise a sort of work-life balance, because like it's always there. I mean, all I have to do is walk into the office and say, I'm gonna just, quick 5 minutes, let me work on this cover or something, and then 10 hours later, I'm still knee deep in it. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing I've had to learn. Another thing I've had to learn too is budgeting, finances. I mean, when I first started out, it was just kind of like, oh, well, this is experimental stuff, so I can just throw whatever I want at it. I don't really have to pay it too much attention because I still have a day job that's paying the bills, like whatever. But now that it's full time, and due to the payment delay that I get from Amazon, because you're not paid until 60 days after a sale occurs, you really have to watch what you're spending and where you're spending it, because your money's not coming for another 2 months. So I've become a bit of a spreadsheet queen in the last month or so to keep track of all this stuff. I mean, my Google Drive is like a disaster area of spreadsheets and random documents, like receipt pictures. It's insane, but I'm trying to keep it all straight. I'm trying.
What's next on your publishing agenda? I assume there'll be more off the record since Clickbait gets that started.
Yeah, there's definitely 2 more books that I've got planned there. There's room to grow it if I want to, but 3 I feel like is a good number just to start with. Other than that, I don't really have anything fleshed out for the rest of the year. I think that's kind of what I'm going to be working on for the rest of the year, although I'm exploring, based on some input from my fans, writing on a different pen name, some vampire romance. I don't know. I'm in the middle of plotting that right now. I'm kind of like really geeking out over it because I love vampires, but we'll see what happens with that. Maybe that'll fit in later in the year, maybe October-ish, but I can't make any promises on that yet.
Okay. So what are you looking forward to at your maiden voyage at GRL?
Oh man, so many things. On one hand, I'm a little overwhelmed because I went to the RT convention in Atlanta in May, and that was insane. There were so many people there. But it was nice because nobody really knew who I was other than my author friends, so I wasn't getting constantly approached and kind of like bombarded with, take pictures on my book, which, don't get me wrong, that doesn't bother me. But that's one thing I'm looking forward to at GRL is kind of making the connection with the fans and getting to know some people who I've talked with online on Facebook and things like that, but haven't actually gotten to meet yet. Just being there as an author. I mean, I was there at RT more as like an attendee because I went to so many panels and all kinds of different things like that. I mean, GRL feels more of like almost like a family event. I'm looking forward to meeting my so-called family online.
Yeah. Comparison between the two, you could fit GRL almost into one of the larger RT events.
Yeah, that's kind of the sense I got from it. But I like that though, the more intimate feel and actually getting time to talk to people and not just feeling rushed like a rat through a race.
Yeah, GRL's very enjoyable for that because you're right. It seems more like a family reunion of just 300 of your closest family.
Too, like people all seem to kind of know each other. Like even if we don't really know each other, we at least know of each other. So it's not awkward. It's not like you're cold calling or some weird stuff like that. It's like, oh, hey, I know you. We should talk. And everybody's so cool. That's the one thing I love about this community. And I learned that in Atlanta too. I mean, all the authors and all the professionals I talk to, everyone is so nice and so approachable and so open to new people and just talking. It's great. I love this community so much. I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for the community, really.
Now, I know you've got a giveaway for our listeners. Tell us what you're giving away.
Yeah, so I am giving away one of 3 signed paperback copies of my new book, Clickbait. It's via Rafflecopter. You can do it on my site, and we're going to have the embed code for the page for the episode as well. Mm-hmm. You can enter a couple different ways. The best way is by joining my mailing list. That's weighted a little heavier. You can also visit my Facebook page for an entry or visit my Twitter page for an entry.
And if I'm not mistaken, if people join up to your email list, they also get a free book, right?
That's correct. Yes. Thank you for mentioning that. So I have a freebie novella. It's called Open Road. So if you join up to my mailing list, you'll also get that as part of joining. It's about 20,000 words. It's another May December story about 2 people kind of starting over in their lives together. I've had some interest in expanding that into a series, which I may do later this year, depending on if I have time. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and sign up for that. You'll get your entry and your free book. Can't beat that.
Awesome. And what's the best way for everyone to keep up with you?
I am most active on Facebook. I don't really use a whole lot of the other social media platforms just because my audience tends to be more on Facebook. But I am on the other places. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm exploring Instagram right now. I like photos a lot and I travel a lot. So I think that's kind of cool to use. But my home base is my website, GarettGroves.com. I've got everything on there, all the links to where you can find me, all my books, etc. So if you can't remember anything else, just remember my name.com.
Fantastic. We'll put all that in the show notes too, so people can have quick links over to all of that. And as you said, we'll have the Rafflecopter on the show notes page as well, so people can enter.
Outstanding.
Well, Garett, it's been so great talking to you. Look forward to meeting you in Denver.
Yeah, I can't wait.
The Big Gay Fiction Podcast is thrilled to once again partner with Gay Romlit as a featured blogger. You can see all the participating blogs and the full GRL Blog Tour schedule at gayromlit.com/2017 blog tour. Gay Romlit is an annual retreat that brings together the people who create and celebrate LGBT romance for a one-of-a-kind must-attend gathering of dynamic, informal, and diverse fun. Each year, the retreat travels to a new city and hosts tons of events from raucous parties to mellow tete-a-tetes while still maintaining a spirit of familiarity. GRL is the place to connect with old friends, find family you didn't know you had, and meet with both newly published and established authors in the gay romance genre. This year's retreat is set for October 19 through 22 in Denver, Colorado at the Denver Marriott Tech Center. For more information or to register, please visit gayromlit.com.